We know from the Hajjat al-Wida, the Prophet ﷺ on his very last Hajj makes this announcement that no, Arab is superior to non-Arab, and vice versa. No black is superior to white, no white is superior to black. Rasul ﷺ made a point to establish this fact that indeed in Islam there is liberty, there is equality, there is justice. That justice, that the injustices that existed prior to the advent of Islam. Remember, if you just backtrack a little bit before the coming of the Prophet ﷺ, the inequalities that existed, particularly with regard to the weaker gender, the opposite gender towards those who are weak and those who are, very easily taken advantage of, in particularly girls, where girls were buried alive. This was, one of the tradition of Jahiliyyah, where the women were oppressed, they were not allowed to have their freedoms, where women were in fact part of, I mentioned this, were part of the waratha, that they would be actually inherited. If their husband died, they were actually inherited by another individual. This were the injustices prior to Islam. But alhamdulillah, coming with the advent of Islam, as Muslimin, that justice and equality is already there in Islam. And the same morals, the same values we see within the American population, the general American population. The same values, the same morals, the same etiquette, and they continue in the same direction. Further going on, when we continue with the pledge, we realize that within the American system, or at least the Nizam, there is some system. And when we have a system in place, a procedure in place that helps our deen, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قَدْ خَلَتْ مِن قَبْلِكُمْ سُنَنٌ فَسِيرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ فَانْظُرُوا كَيْفَ كَانَ عَاقِبَةُ الْمُكَذِّبِينَ. That look at the nations before you. Just examine the nations before you. That they had a sunan, they had a nizam, they had a tartib. And when فَسِيرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ, traverse into the dunya, فَانْظُرُوا كَيْفَ كَانَ عَاقِبَةُ الْمُكَذِّبِينَ. And look at those people who went against the system, who did not follow the nizam. The nizam that they had, the sunan that they had tartib that they had, those who followed it were successful in the efforts, and those who went against the sunnah or the tartib and the nizam, they obviously were unsuccessful. So similarly, within the American system, there is a system when you want to do something. For example, as simple as opening a business. You have to have a business license. You have to have tax certification. You have to, when you rent a place, you have to have, and I also learned this very recently, you have to have insurance. You have to have liability. These are all part of a system. And indeed, when you follow the system, even though they have nothing to do with Islam, when you follow the system, we move in a positive direction. Similarly, in Islam, we have a system. For example, when you pray Salah, there's a methodology, there's a nizam. We do not pray Salah haphazardly. We do not pray Salah in every direction or any direction we want to. There's one direction, for example, the Qibla. There's certain, tartib we follow, certain etiquettes that we follow. So indeed, when we follow the nizam, we follow the system, we will see we'll be successful as Muslims, as well as we will be successful as Americans. We have to follow, and that is why, the system is put in place. If there's no system, if there's no tartib, it brings the onset of chaos, the onset of confusion. The best system indeed is the system of Islam, the methodology of the Prophet ﷺ, the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and the Prophet ﷺ also encouraged, or not only encouraged, but was fair to everyone, that when a system was put in place, we all had to follow the system. For example, when it came to the Shari'i law with regards to theft, stealing. In the time of the Prophet ﷺ, prior to this, there were different laws for different people. The rich had one set of laws, the poor people had one set of laws. People from a different neighborhood or locality or tribe had a different set of laws. People from another tribe had a different set. But with the onset of Islam, whatever rule was decreed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whatever was in Sunnah, everyone had to follow it. And one particular story is a story about a lady by the name of Fatima. This individual by the name of Fatima, not the Prophet's daughter, she had this habit. She was a very noble lady from a very rich family. She had a habit of stealing. Nevertheless, when she stole something, it was brought to the attention of the Prophet ﷺ, and as was the decree in Islam, it was mentioned that whatever the decree in Islam, whatever the adab, the punishment is, she should be punished accordingly. So some of the people objected to the fact that indeed she's a noble family, from a very rich family, so that the Prophet ﷺ should think about it when he's issuing this decree that she is from a rich family. So Rasul ﷺ takes oath, he takes qasam, and he says, by Allah, that even if my own daughter Fatima, his own beloved, his flesh and blood, had to steal or had to do something wherein this particular penalty had to come through, even then I was prepared to issue the same decree. So we understand that when there's a system in place, just as we have a system within the country, we have a system in the constitution, then we, like I said, we go positively, we progress, we go forward. So in the same way that we have a local system, we have our Islamic system. What I encourage you is to, to stick to whatever the tartib is, whatever the nizam is. For example, if you go to a masjid, they have particular places where it says, parking for disabled, or it says parking for the imam, or parking, maybe neighbors parking, or even like, for example, we have the restroom downstairs, men's and ladies, clearly marked men's and ladies. We have to follow the system. We have to follow the nizam. It's just the same as American value, that if it says ladies only, we cannot enter that restroom because it says ladies only. And I believe, at least I understand, to enter a bathroom that says ladies only, it is actually, I believe, a misdemeanor, if I'm not mistaken. Where it says ladies only go. If it says disabled should only park, people who have, the little plates in their car, only they should park. But somehow, sad to say, when it comes to masajid and Muslim organizations and Muslim conventions, and people park anyway. People block. This is just, in general, this is the American system works with Islam. It's not illegal for someone to enter a different place. It's not illegal. It's not haram. It's not haram. But yes, it is against the system. It is against the nizam that is set in place. Once something is set in place, we must follow it. Just to give you an idea, in the time of Umar radiallahu anhu, I noted this little story, and we know the story very well. When Umar radiallahu anhu had conquered Baytul Maqdis, and he was traveling with his servant to Baytul Maqdis, had one animal between the two of them. So they had agreed that we will travel, and while we are traveling for a certain amount of time, the Umar radiallahu anhu will sit on the camel, and the servant will walk, and for a certain period of distance, or certain amount of distance, they will swap places, they will change. And this was the agreement from the very beginning. Eventually, the outcome comes is when they enter into the city of Jerusalem. They're entering into Baytul Maqdis, and the local people did not know who Umar radiallahu anhu was. It so happens that it was the chance of the servant to sit on the camel. So as agreed, they enter in the city of Jerusalem, and now the people are looking. The assumption is, they just assume by looking at him that the person on the camel is Umar radiallahu anhu. When in reality, Umar radiallahu anhu is the one who is walking, holding the rope of the camel, and he enters into the city. The moral we get from there is that whatever system they had in place, whatever they had agreed upon, they continue to do that. So similarly, we in this community, within our masjid, within our organization, stick to the system. This is the American way, that there is a system in place, there is a reason for it. Sometimes changes are made. Masjid has policy. Wherever we go, we have to stick to the policy. Continue with the same topic with regards to the pledge, with how it fits in with Islam. For example, we make Hajj. Now, when we make Hajj, there is certain nizam, there is certain procedure that we have to travel from one city to another, or from one place to another. We have to, go to the Jamarat, you have to repel the shaitan. When you make the waf, you make it in a certain direction. There's a procedure in place. And we know that, وَلَا رَفَثَ وَلَا فُسُوقَ وَلَا جِدَالَ فِي الْحَجِّ. We are taught not to push, not to shove, not to shout, not to be vulgar. There's a reason for this. That, there are millions, not thousands, millions of people. And if anyone is going against the system, anyone is going against the tartib or the nizam that is set in place, it's going to cause chaos. It's going to cause confusion. It's going to, upset other people. So we just have, the person knows. And sad to say, when I went recently for Hajj, whatever direction we're supposed to go in Tawaf, people for whatever reason were going in the opposite direction, maybe trying to exit, but it was creating confusion. So why I'm bringing this to attention is to understand that Islam also has a system. Also, Islam also has a nizam. Just as we have a nizam in this country, just as we have a nizam in our masjid, as we have a tartib in our schools, as we have a tartib in our community, we continue in this manner. Further we go into the system of ihram. The system of ihram. In ihram, every single individual, as long as they are Muslim, as long as they are taking shahada, they are Muslim. Whether the person is a king, the person is a slave, the person continues wear the same ihram, two pieces of cloth, and they continue Hajj in the same manner. I apologize, my train of thought is kind of getting confused now.
And you are not stopping.
My train of thought is really lost now. Inshallah, I'll continue. And Jazakallah, Brother Hussein. We go on to what I'm trying to establish, at least, and I hope brothers are not confused for some reason, other brothers are pretty upset, but to try and establish the fact that the system, when we have nizam and we have system in Islam, it's similar. And again, I said from the very beginning, it is generally the general local population. There may be exceptions to the case, and there are a lot of exceptions. There are a lot of individuals who may be different, but generally this is the system. Allah Ta'ala says in the Quran, "Inna akramakum indallahi atqakum," that indeed the person who is most beloved to Allah Subhanahu wa Taala is the one who has the most taqwa. Not the one based on color, not the one based on race, not the one based on ethnicity. So similarly, we have a system here that everyone is treated equally. No matter what your ethnicity, if you hold the status of American citizenship, then indeed you are treated equally. Again, there are exceptions. You may have experienced differently, but at least this is the general perception. Again, like I said, I'm going to quote again because that in Islam, the same